rain had started before sunrise and never seemed to stop. Thick gray clouds covered the sky as Michael, a 35-year-old widowed father, guided his old pickup truck through the quiet streets after finishing an early grocery delivery. Every extra shift mattered because he was raising his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, alone. Bills were always waiting, but Michael never let Lily see how worried he felt. She believed her father could fix anything, and he tried his best to live up to that belief. As he stopped at a traffic light near the city hospital, something caught his attention. Under a flickering bus stop light stood a young nurse in a soaked blue uniform. She wasn't simply waiting for a bus. Her shoulders shook as she cried, clutching a small backpack to her chest as if it were the only thing she had left. Cars rushed past, spraying rainwater onto the sidewalk, but no one stopped. Michael hesitated for only a moment before pulling over. Rolling down the passenger window, he spoke gently. "Excuse me, are you okay? Do you need help?" The nurse quickly wiped away her tears and forced a weak smile. "I'm fine," she whispered, though her trembling voice said otherwise. Michael had heard those words before. He remembered saying the exact same thing after losing his wife, pretending everything was under control when his world had fallen apart. He knew pain often hid behind the smallest smile. "You don't have to tell me everything," he said softly, "but it's freezing out here. At least let me drive you somewhere safe." For a few seconds, she remained silent, staring at the rain. Finally, she nodded. As she climbed into the truck, Michael noticed she carried no suitcase, no purse, and no phone, only that worn backpack. Neither of them realized that this simple act of kindness, offered on a rainy morning by a struggling single father, would change both of their lives in ways they could never have imagined. For the first few minutes, neither of them spoke. The windshield wipers moved steadily across the glass, while soft rain tapped against the roof of the truck. Michael didn't want to pressure her. He simply turned on the heater and handed her a clean towel that he kept behind the seat. She quietly thanked him, drying her face before staring out the window again. "I know a small diner nearby," Michael said. "They make good coffee and it's warm. We can stop there if you'd like." After a brief pause, she nodded. Inside the nearly empty diner, the smell of fresh coffee and homemade soup filled the room. Michael ordered 2 hot drinks and a bowl of chicken soup for her without asking questions. She looked exhausted, as if she hadn't eaten properly in days. "My name is Emily," she finally said, wrapping both hands around the warm mug. "I'm Michael." For a moment, Emily remained silent. Then the words began pouring out faster than she could control them. "My mom died 3 weeks ago," she whispered. "I was her only family. I stayed home to care for her during the last months because she needed me." She looked down, unable to meet Michael's eyes. "I missed too many shifts at the hospital. They couldn't keep my position anymore. Yesterday, I officially lost my job." Michael listened quietly. Emily continued, her voice breaking. "This morning, my landlord changed the locks. I couldn't pay the rent after the funeral expenses and medical bills. Everything I own is inside this backpack." Michael glanced at the worn bag beside her chair. It suddenly seemed far heavier than it looked. "I didn't know where to go," Emily admitted. "I ended up standing in the rain because I couldn't think of anywhere else." Michael understood that feeling better than most people. After losing his wife years earlier, he had spent many nights wondering how he would keep moving forward for his daughter. Instead of offering empty sympathy, he spoke with quiet honesty. "Sometimes life takes everything at once," he said, "but that doesn't mean it's the end of your story." For the first time that day, Emily believed those words might actually be true. Emily lowered her eyes, still unsure whether she deserved the kindness Michael was showing her. She had spent her career caring for strangers in hospital rooms, yet accepting help for herself felt far more difficult. Pride and heartbreak had convinced her that she needed to face everything alone. As they finished their meal, Michael reached into his wallet and paid the bill before she could protest. "You don't have to do that," Emily said quietly. "I know," Michael replied with a gentle smile. "I'm doing it because someone once helped me when I had nothing. I promised myself I'd do the same for someone else if I ever had the chance." His words stayed with her as they walked back to the truck. The rain had become lighter, but the cold wind still swept through the streets. On the drive, Michael told her about his own life. 4 years earlier, his wife had died unexpectedly after a sudden illness, leaving him to raise their daughter alone. There had been nights when he skipped dinner so Lily would have enough to eat, and mornings when he questioned whether he was strong enough to keep going. But every smile from his daughter reminded him that giving up was never an option. Emily listened carefully. For the first time since losing her mother, she realized she wasn't sitting beside someone who pitied her. She was sitting beside someone who truly understood grief. When they arrived at Michael's modest home, Lily ran to the front door wearing oversized slippers and a bright smile. "Dad, is this your new friend?" she asked with innocent curiosity. Michael laughed softly. "Her name is Emily." Without hesitation, Lily stepped forward and hugged Emily around the waist. "You can stay with us until you feel better," she said. "Dad says nobody should be alone when they're sad." Emily felt tears gather in her eyes again, but these were different from the ones she had cried in the rain. For the first time in weeks, she felt safe. Standing in that small, humble home, she realized she hadn't lost everything after all. Hope had found her again in the kindness of a father and his little girl. The following morning, sunlight streamed through the kitchen window for the first time in days. Emily woke to the smell of pancakes and the sound of Lily laughing as Michael tried, unsuccessfully, to flip breakfast without making a mess. The warmth of the home felt unfamiliar after weeks of grief, yet it gave her a quiet sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. Emily insisted on helping with the dishes before leaving to visit the community health clinic Michael had mentioned. The clinic wasn't hiring full-time nurses, but it welcomed experienced volunteers. Although there was no paycheck, Emily accepted immediately. She wanted to care for others again, even if it meant starting over from the beginning. Days turned into weeks. The volunteer work restored her confidence, and her dedication quickly caught people's attention. Patients appreciated her kindness, and the clinic director noticed how calmly she handled every situation. When a nearby hospital needed an emergency replacement nurse, the director recommended Emily without hesitation. After a successful interview, she received a full-time nursing position with better pay than her previous job. As she read the offer letter, tears filled her eyes once again. This time, they were tears of relief instead of despair. Emily soon rented a small apartment of her own, but she never forgot the family that had stood beside her when she had nothing. Every Sunday evening, she returned to Michael's house for dinner. Lily proudly called it their family night, and no one ever corrected her. Months later, Emily surprised Michael with an envelope. Inside was a handwritten note and the exact amount he had spent helping her during those difficult first weeks. Michael smiled and gently pushed the envelope back across the table. "You don't owe me money," he said. "If you really want to repay me, help the next person who thinks they've lost everything." Emily nodded, understanding that kindness grows stronger when it is passed from one person to another. From that day forward, she never ignored someone in need because she knew that sometimes the greatest gift isn't money or success. It's meeting someone who refuses to let you lose hope when life feels darkest.